Life, with all its twists and turns, has a peculiar way of unfolding. My name is Adam Green, and I'm a 47-year-old man who once believed he had life all figured out. For 23 years, I've been married to Gloria, my rock, my best friend, the woman who stood by my side through every high and low. Together, we raised our daughter Kara, who's now 20 years old. She's a bright and ambitious young woman, ready to embark on her own life journey. Kara is dating Caleb, a decent young man, and they're already talking about marriage. While I'm proud of her, there's a part of me that feels reluctant to let my little girl go. I'm a partner at Green & Jones Accounting, a firm I co-founded with my college buddy, Logan Jones. Logan is quite the character. Back in our university days, he was the life of every party, the guy everyone gravitated toward. Not much has changed since then. He's still single, still a womanizer, and somehow manages to balance his endless escapades with running a multi-million-dollar firm. That's Logan, charming, brilliant, and maddeningly reckless. We started this business from scratch, back when our office was little more than a cramped room with a couple of desks and big dreams. Those were tough but exhilarating times, with long hours powered by cheap coffee and an unshakable belief that anything was possible. Today, our firm serves high-profile clients and generates millions in revenue annually. The success is surreal, but it hasn't come without challenges. Logan and I often clash, not about the quality of our work, because we're both skilled, but about his lifestyle. I worry that one day his antics might tarnish the reputation we've worked so hard to build. Every time I bring it up, Logan just laughs and tells me, "Relax, Jake. Life's too short to worry about what others think." Maybe he's right, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm responsible for more than just profits. At home, things are quieter now. With Kara off at college, Gloria and I have more time to ourselves. It's an adjustment, going from being hands-on parents to rediscovering life as just the two of us. Gloria keeps me grounded when work gets overwhelming, and she often reminds me that Kara is no longer a little girl. She has to make her own decisions, including her choice to marry Caleb. The unraveling of it all began as a joke, a throwaway comment during a meeting with one of our more eccentric clients, Gavin. Gavin is a genius, though a bit peculiar, the kind of guy you'd expect to see in a spy movie, hacking into a government mainframe. His work revolves around designing classified technology for the US military and intelligence agencies. That day, he was presenting his latest creation, a program capable of hacking into any phone, accessing its data, and even eavesdropping on live calls. It was both fascinating and unnerving. As he demonstrated its capabilities, I jokingly said, "If it's that good, why not hack into my wife's phone? Let's see what Gloria's up to." Gavin smirked, took me seriously, and replied, "All right, let's do it." Before I could protest or clarify that I wasn't serious, he was already at work. He asked for Gloria's number, and thinking it was harmless fun, I gave it to him. Within minutes, he handed me a pair of headphones and said, "She's on a call right now." I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. I put on the headphones, my heart pounding. At first, the conversation seemed harmless. Gloria was talking to Logan, my business partner and supposedly my friend. She mentioned Kara's wedding plans and confirmed the date as the 20th of next month. A wave of pride washed over me. It's not every day your daughter gets married. But then, her tone shifted, and what she said next sent a cold chill down my spine. "Logan, you know she's your daughter," Gloria said. I froze. Had I heard that correctly? I strained to listen as they both laughed, a sound that now felt cruel and twisted. Logan's voice followed, dripping with mockery. "Guess I got the best of both worlds. Made you mine and let that idiot foot the bill for 20 years. His words struck like a dagger, and my stomach churned. Kara, my Kara, wasn't mine. Logan, the man I trusted with my business and my life, had been with Gloria behind my back. And worse, they mocked me for it. Gloria's voice, cold and calculating, continued, "Once Adam pays for the wedding, I'll file for divorce. Oh, and Kara wants you to give her away. After all, you're her real father." I couldn't breathe. Divorce. Gloria had been planning this for years, using me as a convenient wallet to fund her perfect little world. My hands trembled as the realization set in. Everything I thought I knew was a lie. I ripped off the headphones, the weight of their betrayal suffocating me. My mind raced through memories, searching for signs I might have missed. Late nights, flimsy excuses, subtle changes in behavior. All of it now made sense. Logan, my partner, my friend, had destroyed everything. Gloria, the woman I thought I knew, was a stranger capable of unimaginable deceit. I sat in stunned silence, a storm of emotions raging within me. Anger, sadness, humiliation, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. Heartbreak has a way of shattering everything you thought you knew. My life, my family, my daughter, none of it was what I believed it to be. And now, I was left with a decision. One thing was clear. This betrayal would not go unanswered. The shock of it all was still settling in, but there was no room for me to fall apart. Not yet. The pain was fresh, the wounds raw, but rising above it all was a cold, calculated fury. This was no time for tears or grief. This was a time for action. Gavin sat across from me, his gaze steady, as though he could read every emotion etched on my face. He didn't ask questions or pry for details. Perhaps it was because he had walked a similar path. His own divorce had left him scarred, the pain evident in his quiet demeanor. Or maybe it was because he understood that there are moments when a man needs to act rather than speak. "I'll help you," he said, his voice calm yet resolute, carrying the weight of unspoken understanding. "Tell me what you need, Adam, and I'll make it happen." I didn't hesitate. "I need their phones tapped, Logan's, Gloria's, and Kara's. I want every call recorded, every message intercepted. If they're hiding anything, I want to know all of it." Gavin nodded, unflinching, his mind already racing ahead. His fingers drummed rhythmically against the table as he leaned back in thought. "Give me some time," he replied. "I'll set it up. And as soon as I have something, you'll be the first to know." The weight of his promise filled the room. It wasn't a casual assurance from an acquaintance. This was different. Gavin understood the fire burning inside me. He recognized the resolve of a man who had been betrayed and was ready to fight back. My fists clenched as I stared at the floor, replaying the sickening conversation I had overheard. Every word, every mocking laugh from Gloria and Logan was seared into my memory. But Kara, her involvement cut the deepest. Had she truly known the truth? Had she willingly chosen Logan, or was she just a pawn in their twisted game? I couldn't allow myself to spiral into questions. This wasn't about hurt feelings anymore. It was about uncovering the full extent of their lies and dismantling the house of cards they had built. "Thank you," I managed, my voice tight with emotion. Gavin didn't need anything more. He stood and placed a firm hand on my shoulder. "We'll get to the bottom of this," he assured me. "Just hold on." As he left, I remained seated in the quiet office, my thoughts churning. I had spent my life building something real, my family, my business, my relationships. Now, I was watching it all unravel. But if they thought I would simply stand by and let it happen, they were gravely mistaken. They had made their moves. Now, it was my turn. And I wasn't just going to play, I was going to win. The drive home passed in a haze, my thoughts tangled with anger and disbelief. The conversation I had overheard played on a loop in my mind, a cruel reminder of the years of deceit. But I knew I had to keep my composure. If Gloria suspected anything, it could jeopardize everything. When I walked through the door, Gloria greeted me with her usual smile. It felt hollow now, like a mask I couldn't unsee. She leaned in to kiss me, but I instinctively turned my head. "Sorry," I muttered, feigning a cough. "I think I'm coming down with something." Her smile faltered. "Oh," she said, pulling back slightly. "You should rest then." I nodded and excused myself to the library, my sanctuary. Tonight it became my war room. Sitting at my desk, I opened my laptop, the soft glow of the screen illuminating the darkened room. I began working, fueled by cold determination. The first task was drafting documents I'd never thought I would need. Separation agreements, reviews of our prenuptial terms, and detailed lists of assets. I forwarded everything to our company lawyer, marking it as urgent. He didn't need the full story yet, just the instructions to have everything prepared. Next, I turned my attention to Kara's wedding, the event I had been led to believe was my privilege, my duty as her father. I sifted through the invoices, receipts, and contracts for the venue, catering, and dress fittings. The amount I had already spent was staggering, with more payments looming on the horizon. Then came the most painful part. I leaned back in my chair, calculating everything I had invested in Kara over the past 2 decades. Her education, medical bills, birthdays, and vacations. The total was astronomical. But it wasn't just the financial costs that stung. It was the memories, the sleepless nights when she was sick, the pride I felt watching her grow up, and the love I poured into raising her, believing she was my daughter. As for Gloria, the anger surged as I tallied the expenses spent on her comforts, her dreams, her whims. I had spared no expense, thinking I was doing right by my wife. Now, every dollar felt like a mockery, a reminder of the betrayal she had orchestrated. By the time I finished calculating the cost of the life I had unknowingly funded, the cold, unfeeling numbers stared back at me. They were a stark reflection of a reality built on lies. I closed the laptop and leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. The rage simmered beneath the surface, but alongside it was something else, a hollow, aching sadness. This was my life, my family, and it had all been a facade. I couldn't bring myself to return to the bedroom that night. The thought of lying next to Gloria, knowing what I now knew, was unbearable. Instead, I stayed in the library, my mind racing as I mapped out my next steps. If they thought they could play me, they were gravely mistaken. The game had changed. And this time, I wasn't playing to lose. The following day, I found myself sitting across from Gavin again. A strange mix of anticipation and dread churned within me. This was it. The moment I would hear, in their own words, what they truly thought of me. No one is ever ready for betrayal, but I didn't have the luxury of avoiding it. Gavin leaned forward, placing a small recorder on the table between us. He gave me a look that was equal parts reassurance and warning before pressing play. The first call crackled to life, and my heart sank as Kara's voice filled the room. "Logan, I've been thinking. I want you to walk me down the aisle," she said, her tone bright and cheerful. "You're my real dad, after all. Adam's just lame. I mean, he's been such an idiot my whole life. I don't even know how he hasn't figured it out." The air seemed to leave the room. Hearing her call me lame and an idiot after everything I had done for her was like a dagger to my heart. But it wasn't the insult that hurt the most. It was the way she called Logan Dad, stripping me of a title I had carried with pride for 20 years. Gavin paused the recording, giving me a moment to collect myself. I nodded for him to continue, unwilling to let my emotions derail the task at hand. The next call was between Gloria and Logan. My stomach churned as Gloria's voice filled the room, soft and sultry. Nothing like the way she spoke to me anymore. "You know I can't stop thinking about last time," she purred. "Are we still on for tomorrow? Same motel?" Logan chuckled, his voice dripping with smugness. "Of course. Can't have Adam finding out, though. Not that he ever would. The guy's so stupid it's almost too easy. Hell, I keep him around because he's making me a fortune. Let the idiot do all the work while we enjoy the benefits." I clenched my fists so tightly my knuckles turned white. The sheer audacity, the disdain in his voice, and the way he dismissed me as though I were nothing more than a pawn, it was infuriating. The call paused briefly as Logan muttered something about needing to sign papers. My ears perked up. Papers. My lawyer's papers. The irony was almost laughable, but there was no humor in it. The call resumed, and Logan continued berating me, calling me boring and predictable. Gloria laughed as though my life, my devotion, was nothing more than a joke. When the recording ended, the silence was deafening. Gavin didn't say anything. What could he say? The betrayal had been laid out in excruciating detail, every word another knife in my back. I stared at the recorder, the weight of it pressing down on me. Kara, the daughter I had loved and raised, saw me as a joke. Gloria, my wife of 23 years, had not only betrayed me, but conspired against me. And Logan, my best friend and business partner, had used me as a stepping stone while treating me like a fool. Taking a deep breath, I steadied myself. The pain was raw and unrelenting, but beneath it was a new resolve. They thought I was blind, weak, a pawn to be manipulated. They were wrong. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The next evening, I met Butch in a dimly lit bar on the edge of town. The place had an old-world charm, the kind of spot where people went to drown their sorrows or strike deals best left in the dark. Butch was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with a glass of whiskey in his hand. A towering man with a thick Irish accent, his reputation preceded him, not just as a mobster, but as one of my more unconventional clients. "Adam," he said, his voice low and steady, "didn't expect to see you in a place like this. What's on your mind, mate?" I didn't bother with pleasantries. I laid it all out. The betrayal, the lies, the recordings. Butch listened in silence, his expression growing darker with each word. When I finished, he leaned back and took a long sip of his drink. "Logan, Gloria, and even your girl Kara," he said, shaking his head. "That's a hell of a knife they've stuck in your back. You want me to take care of it?" I knew exactly what he meant. Subtlety wasn't Butch's style, and his solutions were often permanent. "No," I replied firmly, meeting his gaze. "Killing Logan would be too kind. I want him to suffer. I want him to lose everything. His reputation, his money, his freedom. I want him to feel the weight of every lie he's ever told." Butch nodded slowly, a grin forming on his face. "A man after my own heart. You're not looking for justice. You're looking for vengeance. Fair enough. What's your plan?" Leaning in closer, I lowered my voice and began outlining every detail. Logan had always been reckless, depending on me to keep our financial records pristine while he indulged in his endless vices. He believed his charm and connections made him untouchable, but I knew where all the skeletons were buried. And now, I planned to unearth every single one. I explained my strategy to Butch, how I intended to expose Logan's shady dealings to our clients and the authorities. It wouldn't just end his career, it would obliterate the multi-million-dollar firm we had built together. Logan would lose his wealth, his reputation, and any shred of credibility he still had. Gloria wasn't escaping unscathed either. I planned to use the evidence I had gathered to counter any divorce claims she might try to make. She wouldn't see a cent of what she believed she was entitled to. As for Kara, I had a special plan for her as well, one that would ensure she understood the consequences of her betrayal. Butch listened intently, occasionally nodding, his grin unwavering. When I finished outlining my plan, he leaned forward, resting his massive arms on the table. "You've got a solid plan, Adam," he said, his tone low and measured. "But you're going to need help. People like Logan and Gloria don't go down without a fight. If you want this done right, you'll need more than just paperwork and recordings." "Leverage?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "The kind that makes people squirm," he replied, his grin turning almost sinister. "I've got some friends who specialize in finding dirt that doesn't just ruin reputations, but burns lives to the ground. You give me the word, and I'll have them get to work." I hesitated, weighing my options. This was a line I had never crossed before, but then again, I had never been in a situation like this. Finally, I nodded. "Do it. But make sure it's clean. I don't want anything coming back to me." Butch raised his glass in a toast. "To vengeance, the slow kind." We clinked glasses, and for the first time in days, I felt a sense of control returning to me. This wasn't just about evening the score. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and everything they had tried to take from me. Logan, Gloria, Kara, they had no idea what was coming, but they would soon find out. The next 2 days passed in a blur of calculated moves and meticulous precision. Every decision I made was deliberate, every step perfectly timed. The company, once my pride and joy, had been little more than a tool for Logan to feed his indulgences while I carried the weight of our success. That was about to change. Using my full access to the firm's accounts, along with Logan's credentials and the power of attorney he had foolishly signed over to me, I orchestrated a financial coup. I secured a loan of $85 million and immediately began funneling the funds through a labyrinth of accounts. Each step was meticulously planned to obscure the trail. By the time the money landed in its final destination, a secure account in Thailand, it was untouchable. 5% went to Butch, a small price to pay for his silence and the connections that made it all possible. Meanwhile, Logan remained blissfully unaware, too occupied with Gloria in some dingy motel to notice the cracks forming beneath his feet. The thought of them laughing at my expense, convinced that they had outsmarted me, only fueled my resolve. With the finances secured, I turned my attention to the wedding. Kara had no idea the expenses were no longer coming from me. I transferred every cost, caterers, florists, venue fees, to the company's credit cards. As I made the changes, I couldn't help but smirk. They wanted me to fund their betrayal? Fine, I'd pay for it, but with Logan's money. By the end of the second day, everything was in place. The company was drowning in debt, the wedding fully charged to corporate accounts, and Gloria and Logan remained blissfully ignorant. That night, I poured myself a glass of whiskey and sat in the stillness of my library, letting the weight of my actions settle over me. The plan was unfolding perfectly. Every move, every detail was falling into place. When Gloria walked through the door that evening, her cheeks were flushed. Whether from too much wine or her time with Logan, I couldn't tell. The sight of her, reeking of betrayal, churned my stomach. But I kept my emotions in check. There was no room for anger. Not yet. "Hey, Adam," she greeted me, her voice slightly slurred. She leaned in to kiss me, but I sidestepped her effortlessly, fighting the urge to smile. "Busy day?" I asked, keeping my tone light. She laughed, a sound that grated on my nerves now. "You know how it is," she replied, brushing off the question. I didn't press her. Instead, I handed her the folder containing the documents I had prepared earlier. "Gloria, I've been thinking," I began, keeping my voice calm and even, almost warm. "With everything going on, the wedding, the company, it's all becoming too much for me. I feel like I'm stretched too thin. So, I've decided to simplify things." Her eyes narrowed slightly, though the alcohol dulled her usual sharpness. "Simplify?" she repeated. "Yes," I said, sliding the folder across the table toward her. "I'm transferring my share of the company to you. It's only fair, considering how much you've supported me over the years. This way, you'll have full control, and I can step back from all the stress." She blinked at me, clearly taken aback. "You're giving me your share?" "I trust you, Gloria," I said, lying effortlessly. "You've always been my partner, in business and in life. This just makes it official." For a moment, she hesitated, looking down at the papers as though trying to process what was happening. Then, with a faint trace of suspicion, she asked, "What's the catch?" "No catch," I replied smoothly. "Just sign here, and it's done. You'll have full control, and I'll step away. No more work stress for me. I can finally focus on what truly matters, like family." I watched as Gloria's expression softened at the mention of family, but I caught the greed flickering in her eyes. She wanted this, needed it. The allure of controlling a multi-million-dollar company, the power it promised, was far too tempting for her to resist. Her hand trembled slightly as she picked up the pen and signed her name with an unsteady flourish. "Done," she said with a satisfied smile. I took the folder back, careful to keep my expression neutral. Inside, I was seething with triumph. She had no idea what she had just signed. No idea that the company she now controlled was buried under insurmountable debt. She thought she had gained the keys to the kingdom, but all she had inherited was a sinking ship. "Thank you, Gloria," I said, forcing a smile. "This means a lot to me." She waved me off, clearly too tipsy to think through the implications. "Don't mention it. You've earned a break," she slurred before stumbling toward the bedroom. Once she was out of sight, I exhaled slowly, the weight of the moment settling over me. This was just the beginning. On paper, the company was hers now, along with all the debts, the embezzled funds, and the loans she and Logan would soon have to answer for. Sitting in the quiet of the living room, I felt a grim sense of satisfaction. They believed they were in control, pulling the strings, but they had no idea the trap was already closing in around them. This wasn't just revenge, it was justice. They had stolen my trust, my dignity, and my family. Now, I was taking it all back. The next day dawned with an unnatural calm, the kind of stillness that signals an approaching storm. I went about my morning routine as though nothing was out of the ordinary, but inside, I was anything but calm. My plan was progressing flawlessly, and today marked a pivotal moment. Gloria and Logan had their usual rendezvous planned, a cheap motel that had become their haven for deceit. This time, though, it wasn't their sanctuary, it was my stage. Butch had ensured the room was set up perfectly. Every angle was covered, each camera discreetly placed to capture their sordid performance in crystal-clear high definition. Nothing was left to chance. When they arrived, giggling like teenagers, the cameras began rolling. Their betrayal unfolded with a shamelessness that even I hadn't anticipated. By the time they left, sweaty and smug, they remained oblivious to the fact that their little escapade had been immortalized. The files were securely saved and sent to Butch for safekeeping. That same evening, Kara was out with her friends, where she crossed paths with Emiliano. He was a master of his craft, a man whose charm was as sharp as a blade. Butch had hired him with a single purpose: to expose Kara's true nature and shatter the carefully constructed facade she wore. Emiliano worked quickly and methodically, captivating her within minutes. He dazzled her with just enough displays of wealth and charm to make her head spin. By the time he led her to his bed, she was completely enraptured. practically begging for his attention. Hidden cameras in the room captured every moment, her eagerness, her laughter, her complete surrender. The footage was damning. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a full-blown betrayal. As I watched later that night in my library, anger simmered, but satisfaction lingered as well. The lies I had been living with for years were finally being unmasked. Gloria, Logan, Kara, they had all underestimated me. They thought I would remain the fool, blind to their games. Now, the evidence was mounting and the noose was tightening. 2 days later, I walked into a dimly lit bar, the air thick with the scent of stale beer and cigarette smoke. It was the kind of place where secrets were shared over whispered conversations and the clink of glasses. Butch and Gavin were already seated at a worn table, waiting for me. Their faces were unreadable, but their presence exuded anticipation. I slid into the booth, my mind still spinning from the events of the past few days. Everything had fallen into place so seamlessly, almost too perfectly. But I couldn't afford to let my guard down. Not yet. There was still work to be done. "You've been busy," Butch said as he poured me a drink without waiting for my request. The whiskey gleamed a dark amber, its depth mirroring the storm swirling within me. He slid the glass across the table. "You're not just playing the game anymore, Adam. You're rewriting the rules." I took a sip, savoring the fiery burn as it slid down my throat. The adrenaline from the night before still coursed through my veins. "I'm not playing," I replied coolly, locking eyes with him. "I'm winning." Butch nodded slowly, a grin spreading across his face. "I see that. And speaking of winning, about that house deal, it went through like clockwork. The Mexican mobster's in, and you're walking away with another $3 million. I leaned back, surprised at how smoothly the sale had gone. The house, once a home filled with years of memories, now tainted, was gone. Sold to a man whose very name sent a chill down my spine. Thanks to Butch's connections, the deal had been swift, and the money was already in my hands. "I didn't expect it to go this smoothly," I admitted, narrowing my eyes slightly. "The Mexican boss, huh? How do you feel about all this?" Butch chuckled, taking a long drag from his cigarette. "He's impressed," he said with a sly grin. "Said he likes the way you're handling this. The man's got a soft spot for revenge, if you catch my drift." He leaned in closer, lowering his voice as if revealing a secret. "He's even offered to help. Said he could take out Logan, Gloria, and Kara for you. Clean up the whole mess real nice." The suggestion stirred something deep within me, a flicker of temptation. The idea of erasing them all in one decisive stroke, silencing their betrayal without lifting a finger, was undeniably appealing. But a voice inside me, steady and growing louder with each passing day, held me back. I shook my head and set my drink firmly on the table. "No, I don't want them dead. Not yet. I want to enjoy this. I want them to feel what they've done to me. If I let someone else handle it, it's over too quickly." Butch studied me for a moment, his expression unreadable. "Fair enough. But, if you change your mind..." "I won't," I cut him off sharply. "This is my revenge. They'll suffer slowly, just like I did." Gavin, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. His voice was low but firm. "You're playing a dangerous game, Adam, but it's your call. Just make sure you're ready for the fallout." I didn't need his caution. I had already accepted the risks. "I'm ready," I said, my voice steady. "And when it's over, they'll wish they had never crossed me." Butch's grin widened, clearly impressed by my resolve. "Well, Adam, whatever you decide, just know we're with you. But sometimes," he added with a knowing smirk, "the best revenge is letting them destroy themselves." I couldn't help but smile at that. He was right. Watching them hang themselves with their own greed and lies would be the ultimate satisfaction. And that's exactly what I planned to ensure. The wedding was only a few days away, and everything was falling into place just as I had planned. The bill had already climbed to an absurd $2 million. As I reviewed the final numbers, I couldn't help but smile. Every penny was worth it. The wedding was a grand spectacle of excess, a show of opulence designed to impress. But I knew the real performance was yet to come. Gloria and Kara were immersed in their preparations, their excitement palpable as they finalized details for the big day. I played my part well, assuring them I had a few last-minute arrangements to handle before joining them at the destination. They didn't question me. Why would they? They were too consumed by their fantasy, too blinded by their plans to see the walls closing in around them. The moment they left, the true work began. As the door clicked shut behind them, a team of movers arrived, executing their task with practiced efficiency. The house, already emptied of my belongings, was now being stripped of theirs. Every item, clothing, photos, trinkets, was packed away into boxes, reduced to nothing more than remnants of a life they had destroyed. I watched as the movers worked, their actions methodical and precise. To an outsider, it would seem like an ordinary move, but for me, it was the culmination of months of planning. Each box carried out was a step closer to my ultimate revenge, a step closer to them realizing just how far they had pushed me. When the final box was loaded onto the truck, its destination was clear: Logan's house. Their belongings, once symbols of the life we shared, would now serve as daily reminders of their betrayal. I wanted them to see each other across the dinner table, across the bed, and know that their dirty little secrets had been laid bare. I took one last look around the house. It was nearly empty now, the silence almost soothing. It stood as a stark contrast to the chaos that had defined my life in recent months. But as I stood there, amidst the ruins of what I had carefully dismantled, a sense of calm washed over me. The game was over, and I had won. I didn't need to be there when Gloria and Kara returned to find their lives in shambles. The thought of their faces, their realization that everything was gone, not just their belongings, but the very foundation of their lives, was enough. I didn't need to witness their panic or the dawning horror as the truth sank in. No, I didn't need to be there at all. I was already beyond them, beyond all of it. The only thing left now was to sit back and enjoy the fallout. Leaving the house, I watched as the last of the moving trucks rumbled down the driveway. The sound of the engines faded as I walked away, my steps deliberate and calm. I turned off my phone, removed the SIM card, and flung it into the distance. The wedding was only a few hours away. Gloria and Kara would soon come to understand the cost of their betrayal, and when they did, I would be ready. Gloria and Kara had arrived at the wedding destination, their excitement palpable. They were absorbed in the whirlwind of last-minute preparations, oblivious to the storm brewing around them. Kara, radiant in her bridal gown, busied herself with every detail: her dress, her makeup, her hair, all meticulously planned to perfection for her grand entrance down the aisle. This was her moment, the one she had dreamed of for so long. Gloria was equally engrossed, but it was clear where her true focus lay. Her attention flitted between the wedding arrangements and Logan. Adam's absence barely registered. He had assured her he'd join them later, and she saw no reason to doubt him. After all, everything was going according to plan. Logan was present, Kara's wedding was happening, and soon, the life Gloria had envisioned with Logan would begin. Logan, ever the meticulous planner, was already at the venue. He moved through the space with the confidence of a man in control, inspecting every detail. From the food and drink to the seating arrangements, he left nothing unchecked. Yet, as he tasted the hors d'oeuvres and checked the menu one last time, his thoughts drifted. Adam. It had been over a month since Logan had seen or spoken to him. The silence struck him as odd. Pulling out his phone, he dialed Adam's number. The call rang a few times before going straight to voicemail. Frowning, Logan tried again with the same result. "What the hell is going on?" he muttered under his breath. Adam had always been reliable, especially when it came to important matters like this. Logan brushed off the unease, telling himself Adam was just being his usual aloof self. "Big-time idiot," he muttered. Logan wasn't the kind of man to dwell on such things. He had a wedding to oversee. His focus shifted back to the details, ensuring the flavors of the menu were just right and the arrangements flawless. Yet, deep down, a nagging suspicion lingered. Something about Adam's silence didn't sit right. He dismissed the feeling. What could possibly be so important that Adam would vanish without a word? It was probably nothing, or so he convinced himself. Gloria, meanwhile, was entirely unaware of Logan's moment of hesitation. She remained laser-focused on the event, utterly unconcerned with Adam's absence. She had long since resigned herself to the reality of their marriage. What mattered now was Logan's presence, the future they would share, and the seamless execution of Kara's wedding. As the ceremony drew nearer, Logan's fleeting doubts faded into the background. He was content, absorbed in the spectacle of the day, blissfully unaware of the storm about to break. He didn't realize that the calm he was reveling in would soon shatter, leaving the carefully constructed world he, Gloria, and Kara had built in ruins. The wedding was in full swing. Guests filled the venue, their chatter mingling with the soft strains of music playing in the background. Kara stood at the back of the hall, dressed in her stunning white gown, a picture of bridal perfection. This was her moment, the culmination of all her dreams. Yet, something was missing. Her father, Adam. Gloria, bustling about with last-minute instructions for the staff, dialed Adam's number again. Her hands trembled as she pressed the call button. The line rang once, then went straight to voicemail. Again. Her heart sank. Adam had always been dependable, especially when it came to Kara. He had never missed a milestone, her first steps, her performances, her graduation. He had always been there. So why wasn't he here now, on the most important day of her life? Panic crept into Gloria's chest. She tried to push it aside, reasoning that he must be running late. Maybe he's stuck in traffic, she told herself. Maybe he's just having one of his moods. But deep down, a cold sense of dread settled over her. Something wasn't right. "Where's that idiot Adam?" Kara's sharp, demanding voice broke through Gloria's thoughts. Gloria took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain composed. She couldn't let Kara see the rising fear clawing at her insides. Around them, the crowd had started to whisper, curious and uneasy at the absence of the bride's father. But there was no time to panic. This was the moment Kara had dreamed of, the day she would walk down the aisle and begin a new chapter of her life. Taking Kara's hands in hers, Gloria gripped them tightly and forced a reassuring smile. "Forget about Adam for now," she said, her voice steady though her stomach churned. "It's not important. Logan will walk you down the aisle." Kara blinked, clearly taken aback. "What do you mean Logan will walk me down?" she asked, her anger giving way to confusion. "Where's Dad? I wanted to tell him Logan would walk me down." Gloria hesitated, her resolve wavering for a brief moment before she spoke, the words tumbling out too quickly. "It doesn't matter," she said, almost as if trying to convince herself. "Logan's here. You're his daughter now, Kara. He'll give you away." The words stung as they left Gloria's lips, but she pushed the feeling aside. She had made her decision long ago, or at least she had convinced herself that she had. "Come on," Gloria urged, guiding Kara toward the aisle. "I'm divorcing Adam tomorrow morning and moving in with Logan. Forget about that idiot. Let's focus on the wedding." Kara glanced one last time toward the empty space where Adam should have been, but said nothing. She had been waiting for this day her whole life, and she wouldn't let his absence ruin it. With a deep breath, she allowed Gloria to lead her to the aisle where Logan stood waiting. Yet, as they neared the altar, Gloria felt a knot of unease settle in her stomach. She couldn't say why, but something about the day felt wrong. Logan took Kara's arm and walked her down the aisle with practiced ease. To the casual observer, everything seemed perfect, but quiet murmurs rippled through the crowd, especially among the groom's family. The whispers grew louder as guests glanced at one another in confusion. Where is the father of the bride? Who is this man walking her down? Caleb, standing at the altar, was visibly surprised. His brow furrowed as his gaze flicked between Logan and Kara, but his shock was fleeting, quickly replaced by the eager anticipation of seeing his bride approach. This was his moment, and he wasn't about to let anything overshadow it. His eyes locked on Kara, as if she were the only thing that mattered. Gloria stood to the side, her smile strained as she watched the ceremony unfold. She had been so focused on keeping the day on track that she had failed to notice the growing unease spreading through the room. Something felt off, but she couldn't quite put her finger on what it was. Logan and Kara reached the altar, and with a smooth, almost rehearsed motion, Logan placed Kara's hand in Caleb's. The guests fell silent as the minister began to speak. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to join this man and this woman in holy matrimony," he said, his voice warm and steady. "If anyone has any objections to this union, let them speak now or forever hold their peace." A pause hung in the air, the weight of the moment settling over the room. Then, suddenly, the large screen above the altar flickered to life. At first, it was just static, but then the image cleared, revealing a black background. A voice, distorted and modulated to be unrecognizable, boomed through the hall. "I have an objection," the voice declared, its tone commanding and menacing. The room froze, stunned into silence. Guests shifted uncomfortably, glancing around in confusion. Logan's eyes darted around the room, his expression darkening. Kara's face, previously calm, twisted with confusion and disbelief. Gloria clenched her hands at her sides, her breath catching. Something about the voice, so deliberate and forceful, felt like a warning. "What is this?" Logan growled under his breath, his eyes narrowing. He wasn't a stranger to drama, but this was far beyond anything he had anticipated. The minister, clearly shaken, stammered, "Who is speaking?" The voice ignored the question, cutting through the tension like a blade. "This is the devil speaking," it said, each word dripping with venom. "And I have a video for the groom." The screen flickered again, and the room plunged into stunned silence. Slowly an image appeared, a video that no one could have expected. The footage showed Logan and Gloria in a motel room, unmistakably engaged in acts that were both graphic and undeniable. Gasps echoed through the hall, followed by horrified whispers and stunned stares. Family members and friends recoiled, some shielding their eyes, others frozen in shock. Logan's smug, arrogant face filled the screen as the camera captured every sordid detail. Gloria, the supposed wife and mother, was laid bare for everyone to see, her actions leaving no room for denial. The atmosphere in the room turned electric, the whispers growing louder, the guests unable to process what they were seeing. Gloria's face paled, her hands trembling as her carefully constructed facade began to crumble. Kara's expression shifted from confusion to horror as the realization of what was unfolding struck her. The quiet, joyous anticipation of the ceremony was gone. In its place was chaos, chaos that none of them could escape. Kara's face turned pale, a deep flush of humiliation washing over her as the reality of the betrayal unfolded before everyone. Her hands trembled, and her breath hitched in her throat. She had no idea, no inkling that this was coming. Gloria, who had spent years maintaining the facade of the perfect wife and mother, was now completely exposed, her lies and deceit laid bare for all to see. The distorted voice continued, its cruel, mocking tone echoing through the church. "Like mother, like daughter," it sneered. The screen flickered again, and a new scene appeared. This time, it showed Kara in a lavish hotel room, her body entwined with a man she barely knew, the Mexican mobster, Emiliano. The intimate footage left nothing to the imagination. Kara's face, lost in ecstasy, was unmistakable, captured clearly in the grainy but damning video. The room fell into a suffocating silence. The celebratory atmosphere evaporated, replaced by a thick tension that hung over everyone. Kara's eyes widened in horror as the video played. Her hands instinctively moved to cover her face, trembling with shame. She turned to her mother, her voice barely a whisper, filled with disbelief and guilt. "Mom, what is this?" she asked, her words trembling. Before Gloria could respond, a furious voice cut through the heavy silence from the back of the room. "That's enough!" Caleb, Kara's groom-to-be, had recoiled from the altar. His face was flushed with anger and disgust. His mother, a dignified woman known for her composed demeanor, stormed to the front, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. "Kara!" she screamed, her voice filled with venom. Without hesitation, she slapped Kara hard across the face, the sound echoing through the church like a thunderclap. The slap stung, but the humiliation in Kara's eyes was far worse. "You're a disgrace," Caleb's mother spat, her fury unrelenting. "You belong in the streets, not in a family. You've shamed yourself and your family." She turned to her son, her voice commanding. "This wedding is over." Caleb stood off to the side, his hands raised in disbelief. His mind raced as he tried to process everything he had just witnessed. Betrayal churned in his gut. Without a word, he turned and stormed out of the church, his mother following close behind. Kara and Gloria were left standing at the altar, humiliated and alone. Chaos erupted in the church. Guests shouted in anger, gasped in shock, or stood frozen in disbelief. Whispers of betrayal and disgust rippled through the crowd as people pieced together the broken shards of the spectacle they had just witnessed. Kara, tears streaming down her face, pressed her hands to her cheeks, still stinging from the slap. She turned to Gloria, her voice weak and trembling. "Why, Mom? Why didn't you tell me?" Gloria stood paralyzed, her face a mix of shame and fury. She couldn't answer. The weight of her betrayal, her manipulation, and her lies had finally come crashing down. Everything she had hidden was now exposed, and there was no way to escape the judgment of the crowd or her own daughter. The minister, pale and visibly shaken, stepped forward. His hands trembled as he tried to speak. I am so sorry," he stammered, struggling to regain his composure. "But this wedding cannot proceed." With that, the congregation began to disperse, murmurs of disbelief and outrage still filling the air. Guests left the church, shaking their heads, unable to comprehend what had just unfolded. Logan, who had stood smugly moments earlier, now looked stunned. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by confusion and anger as he began to understand the full extent of what had happened. His reputation, once carefully constructed, was now in shambles, ruined beyond repair. Far from the chaos, Adam watched the fallout unfold from a safe distance. He knew this was only the beginning. There was more to come. Gloria and Kara sat together in the aftermath, their sobs echoing through the empty church. The grand day meant to celebrate Kara's new beginning had been reduced to heartbreak and humiliation. Kara's tears mixed with her mother's as they tried to process the whirlwind of betrayal and shame that had unraveled before them. "I don't understand," Kara whispered, her voice broken. "How could this happen? How could he do this to me? To us?" Gloria had no answer. She too was reeling from the destruction. Everything had spiraled out of control so quickly. What was supposed to be a perfect day had crumbled into chaos. Her careful planning, her meticulous efforts to keep everything on track, had all been for nothing. Now, her world was falling apart. "Mom?" Kara asked, her voice trembling. "Where's Adam? Why isn't he here?" Gloria blinked, her chest tightening at the mention of Adam. He should have been there, should have been fighting to walk his daughter down the aisle, protective and proud, as he had always been. Instead, he was nowhere to be found. Gloria realized, with growing panic, that she couldn't reach him at all. She had tried calling his phone repeatedly, but it remained unreachable. The anxiety clawed at her as her mind began to race. Outside the church, the air was cold and unwelcoming. Logan, who had walked Kara down the aisle, drove them back to the house in silence. He glanced at Gloria and Kara occasionally, but no one spoke. There was nothing left to say. Everything had already been said in the videos. Gloria sat in the passenger seat, her thoughts spiraling. Her heart pounded as a chilling realization began to take shape. What if Adam knew all along? What if he orchestrated this? The thought sent a cold shiver down her spine as she stared blankly out the window, the weight of what had just happened crushing her. Could he have planned this entire thing? The thought gnawed at Gloria as the car moved in tense silence. Had Adam been watching from the shadows while she reveled in her betrayal? No, she told herself, shaking her head as if to dismiss the notion. Adam isn't capable of that. He's just a pushover. He's not cruel. He wouldn't go this far. But as the thought lingered, doubt began to creep in. What if he is capable of this? What if, all this time, Adam has been playing the long game? The events of the day, the ruthless, calculating exposure of her and Kara, were undeniably a masterstroke. Had he known about her affair with Logan all along? Did he know Kara's secret? Gloria swallowed hard, her breath hitching in her throat. The signs were there. The distance Adam had kept recently, his indifference toward the wedding, the way he had started focusing on his own affairs. Was he plotting this for months, biding his time for the perfect moment to strike? The idea made Gloria's stomach churn. Adam, my husband, the man I manipulated for years, could he have turned the tables on me so completely? The car's silence grew heavier. Kara, still shaken, kept her head down, her mind lost in turmoil, while Gloria struggled to focus on the city lights flickering past. But all she could picture was Adam's face, the cold, calculating look he had worn the last time she saw him. He hadn't said a word about his plans, yet his absence now seemed to scream the truth. Did he know? As the car rolled into the driveway, Gloria's heart began to race. She needed answers. She had to know where Adam was and why he hadn't shown up. Reaching for her phone, she dialed his number again. It went straight to voicemail, just like before. Her breath hitched as panic clawed at her chest. "Mom?" Kara asked softly, her voice trembling. "What's going on? Why isn't Dad here?" Gloria didn't respond immediately, too consumed by the weight of her thoughts. As they pulled into the driveway, she realized something was very wrong. Armed guards stood at the gates, their presence immediately sending a jolt of fear through her. What's going on? Gloria demanded, as she stepped out of the car, her voice rising in panic. This is our home! The guards didn't respond. They simply stood their ground, motioning for the car to turn around. Gloria's heart sank as she looked at Kara, whose face mirrored her confusion and distress. Before Gloria could press further, the front door of the house opened, and a man in a dark suit emerged. His calm demeanor and piercing gaze suggested he was someone accustomed to handling such situations. In his hand, he carried a manila envelope. "Are you Mrs. Adam Green?" the man asked, his voice clipped but professional. "I am," Gloria replied sharply, trying to mask the panic rising in her chest. "What is the meaning of this? This is my house. Who are these men?" The man cut her off, extending the envelope toward her. Gloria hesitated, her eyes darting to the guards, who remained stone-faced and silent. With trembling hands, she took the envelope, a sense of foreboding knotting her stomach. "What's this?" she asked, tearing it open without waiting for an answer. Inside was the deed to the house, with the bold heading, "Property of Mr. Alejandro Lopez," emblazoned across the top. Gloria's eyes scanned the document in disbelief. This is a mistake," she murmured, shaking her head. "This house is ours. We've lived here for years." Her hands trembled as her gaze moved to the bottom of the page. There, unmistakable, was Adam's signature. The realization hit her like a freight train. Adam had sold the house. Her breath came in shallow gasps as she looked up from the document, her mind spinning. No, this can't be real. Adam would never... The lawyer's expression remained neutral, his voice steady. "I'm afraid this is all in order. Mr. Lopez is now the rightful owner of this property. As of today, this house is no longer in your name, Mrs. Green." Gloria's legs wobbled beneath her, and she stumbled back, clutching the envelope like it was a harbinger of doom. The lawyer, unfazed, handed her one more item. This time, it wasn't legal jargon. It was a letter. A letter she didn't want to open, but knew she had to. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded the paper, the words on the page sinking into her like daggers, each one heavier than the last. The handwriting was unmistakably Adam's. "Gloria," the letter began, and her breath caught in her throat. She could almost hear his voice in the words, cold, precise, and cutting. "You must have realized by now that there is no way back. By the time you read this, I will no longer exist in your life. You and your daughter betrayed my love and trust. Today was the culmination of years of humiliation and deceit. I could write more, but frankly, I don't think you're worth the effort. You and your daughter can go to hell." Each sentence felt like a physical blow, every word digging deeper into Gloria's chest. She stood frozen, staring at the letter as disbelief turned to despair. The weight of Adam's words sank in. She had underestimated him, dismissed him for years, taken him for granted. Now, the man she had manipulated had struck back, leaving her with nothing. The lawyer and guards stood silently nearby, their expressions impassive, as if witnessing this was all part of their duty. Gloria looked up at the lawyer, her voice trembling. Where is Adam? Is he here? What does he want?" The lawyer's expression remained unchanged. "Mr. Green is no longer involved in any of this. I'm only here to ensure the transition of ownership is completed smoothly as per his instructions." Gloria's legs buckled beneath her, and she collapsed to the ground, the weight of the situation finally crushing her. This wasn't just about losing the house, it was about losing everything. The life she had built, the family she had betrayed, the security she had taken for granted, all of it was gone, and it was her fault. Kara stood beside her, equally stunned, her voice trembling with anger and confusion. "Mom, what the hell is going on? What did Dad do?" Gloria couldn't answer. She clutched the letter tighter, her hands shaking as the reality of Adam's betrayal consumed her. The ride back to Logan's house was heavy with silence. Gloria sat slumped in the back seat, staring blankly ahead, her thoughts racing in circles. Kara, still in shock, hadn't spoken since they left the property. Even Logan, normally brimming with confidence and arrogance, was unusually quiet. His brow furrowed as he repeatedly glanced at his phone, hoping for some explanation or contact from Adam. But the screen remained empty, just like the atmosphere in the car. When they finally arrived at Logan's place, the oppressive quiet followed them inside. Logan stepped out first, slamming the car door with a sharp thud. His movements were mechanical as he made his way to the mailbox, desperate for something, anything, to ground him after the day's chaos. Pulling out a stack of mail, Logan sifted through it. Most were bills and junk, but one envelope caught his eye. Its plain, unmarked exterior and lack of a return address stood out immediately. Turning it over, he saw it was addressed to him in unfamiliar handwriting. Before he could open it, another envelope in the pile stopped him. This one was from his company. Tearing it open, he quickly scanned its contents, his face tightening as he read. The documents confirmed what he feared. Adam was no longer associated with the company. His shares had been withdrawn, his involvement terminated, and his stake transferred entirely to Gloria. Logan's mind raced. This wasn't just a business decision. It was personal. Adam had orchestrated everything, dismantling the company in a way that ensured Logan would be left holding the pieces. Letting out a frustrated sigh, Logan tossed the envelope onto the counter, but the plain, unmarked letter still demanded his attention. Hands trembling, he tore it open. The neat handwriting was unmistakably Adam's, and the words made Logan's stomach churn. "They're your problem now. Have fun." The simplicity of the message hit Logan like a punch to the gut. He stood there, staring at the letter, as if hoping the words would somehow change. But they didn't. The truth was undeniable. Adam had completely turned everything over to him. Gloria, Kara, the company, the mountain of debt, and the tangled web of lies. It was all Logan's responsibility now. Logan paced the room, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He had underestimated Adam, dismissing him as a fool for years, but now it was clear the tables had turned. Adam wasn't just trying to ruin him, he had set him up as the caretaker of a sinking ship. Gloria and Kara walked in just as Logan threw the letter across the room. Gloria's eyes were red, her face hollow from the emotional toll of the day. Kara, though shaken, still carried a simmering fury beneath her shock. "What's going on, Logan? What did Adam do?" Kara demanded, her voice cracking with anger and confusion. Logan looked at them, frustration and helplessness etched on his face. "He did exactly what we should have seen coming. He destroyed everything. He took an $85 million loan and left us holding the bag. Now it's all on us." Gloria let out a shaky breath and sank onto the couch. This can't be happening. "What do we do now?" Logan shook his head, still reeling from the enormity of Adam's actions. A grim expression settled over his face as he paced the room. Whatever plan Adam had set in motion, Logan knew time was running out. And Adam's final words echoed in his mind. "Have fun." The tension in the room was huge as Gloria and Kara continued to argue, their emotions raw and exposed. Meanwhile, Logan's thoughts churned. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel in control. Adam had taken everything from them, and they were just beginning to understand the depth of their downfall. Logan stood by the door, staring at the pile of belongings unceremoniously dumped by the movers. The weight of everything Adam had orchestrated bore down on him, the final moves of his former friend crashing down like an avalanche. As he tried to process the chaos, his phone buzzed in his hand. Still fuming, he answered, expecting yet another problem to pile onto the mess. But the voice on the other end made his blood run cold. "Mr. Logan, I'm calling about the company credit card. It's been maxed out," the voice said, its tone a mix of apology and concern. Logan frowned. "What do you mean maxed out? That card has a $2 million limit. How could it possibly be maxed out already?" There was a moment of hesitation before the voice continued. "It was used to pay a wedding company, sir. A significant amount was charged for wedding-related expenses." Logan's mind reeled. Wedding expenses? He tried to recall any such charges but came up empty. His heart began to race. Kara's wedding. The realization hit him like a freight train. Adam. He used the company card to fund a wedding he knew would never happen. His hands trembled as the pieces fell into place. Adam had planned this for weeks, maybe even months. Every payment, every transaction. It had all been part of a larger scheme to ruin him. "How much is left on the card?" Logan snapped. The voice hesitated again before responding. "There's nothing left, sir. In fact, the account is now in the negative." Logan's stomach dropped. Without another word, he ended the call and frantically opened the bank's app on his phone. His hands shook as he logged in. When the balance appeared on the screen, he froze. The account was empty, completely drained. The full weight of Adam's revenge hit Logan in that moment. Everything was gone. His business, his money, his carefully curated life. It had all been ripped away. He felt the room closing in on him, the walls suffocating as rage blurred his vision. Kara's voice broke through his spiraling thoughts. "Logan, what are we going to do now? What about the wedding? What about everything?" Her words grated on him, each syllable like nails on a chalkboard. It wasn't just her words, it was her very presence. She's part of this mess too. She failed me too. The fury bubbling inside him erupted before he could stop himself. Logan turned sharply toward Kara, his palm connecting with her cheek in a slap that echoed through the room. Kara stumbled back, her hand flying to her face, her eyes wide with shock. Gloria gasped, her face a mixture of disbelief and fury. "Logan, what the hell is wrong with you?" Kara stood frozen, staring at him as if unable to comprehend what had just happened. Tears welled in her eyes, not from the pain of the slap, but from the devastation of everything crumbling around her. Logan's voice shook with fury as he lashed out. "Do you think I'm not going through hell too?" he shouted, pacing the room. "Everything's gone. The company's gone. The money's gone. And you, both of you, are just making it worse. All you care about is your damn wedding, as if it matters anymore. Do you even realize what's happening to me?" Kara didn't reply. Silent tears streamed down her face as the weight of his words sunk in. Gloria rushed to her daughter, pulling her into a protective embrace. "Stop it, Logan!" she shouted, her voice trembling with anger. But Logan couldn't stop. His mind raced, his sense of loss suffocating him. He felt trapped in a nightmare of his own making, the walls of his life caving in. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Logan stopped pacing. He stood still, his face cold and detached, as he looked at Gloria and Kara. "I'm done," he said flatly, his voice low. "You figure this out. I'm out of here." Without waiting for a response, he grabbed his jacket and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Gloria and Kara stood in the silence he left behind, the air heavy with anger, devastation, and helplessness. But Logan didn't care. He was done. Far away, Adam leaned back in his seat as the plane began its descent. The view of the landscape below was breathtaking, but the satisfaction in his heart was even greater. A quiet smile tugged at his lips as he reflected on the careful, calculated series of moves that had brought him here. For years, he had been a pawn in a life he hadn't fully chosen, manipulated and dismissed by those who should have been loyal to him. But now, for the first time, he was in control. When the plane landed at Tiana International Airport, everything was seamless. His new identity, carefully prepared, ensured no questions would be asked. His passport wasn't the one he'd used his whole life, but it would serve him well in this new chapter. There were no obstacles, no one left to stop him. Each small transaction, every carefully planned move, had culminated in this moment. As Adam stepped off the plane, he felt a sense of triumph wash over him. It wasn't just revenge, it was a masterpiece. The life he had left behind was in ruins, and he had orchestrated every step of its collapse. Now, he was free to start anew. The symphony of revenge had ended, and Adam was its conductor. Once Adam arrived in Thailand, everything fell effortlessly into place. The account had been set up, the money flowed seamlessly, and as he stared at his phone screen, the vast sum now in his name filled him with a quiet sense of accomplishment. Over $80 million, more than he could ever need. The numbers on the screen were a testament to his meticulous planning, a culmination of years of strategy executed to perfection. He would never need to worry again. Any lingering thoughts of Gloria, Kara, or the company had faded away long ago. They were no longer his concern. The company was in shambles, Logan drowning in debt, and his family utterly fractured. Adam had already emotionally detached himself from that life before today. All that remained was the final step. Now, he was free. Thailand offered him a fresh start, an empty canvas on which he could paint whatever future he desired. His past was nothing more than a carefully crafted story, left behind with no strings attached. With his newfound wealth, a new identity, and complete independence, Adam had stepped into a life free of manipulation, lies, and the burdens of those who had dragged him down. As the plane touched down, he took a deep breath, savoring the feeling of liberation. His marriage, his daughter, and his company were distant memories, washed away by the tide of his deliberate choices. The world outside was now his to explore. With his fortune secured and his future wide open, Adam stepped off the plane with a smile. For the first time in years, he felt truly alive, free in a way he never had been before. I lay there, the soft hum of the fan filling the room, my new girlfriend curled up beside me. The sound of my phone ringing barely registered. It had become nothing more than a faint echo of a life I no longer cared about. Still, when I glanced at the screen and saw the name flashing, I sighed and reluctantly reached for it. Butch. It was always Butch. "Yeah," I answered, skipping any pleasantries. "Hey, Adam," Butch's gravelly voice came through the line. "Got some news for you. Logan's gone. He couldn't handle the pressure. The bank was closing in on him, and Gloria and Kara were living with him. The whole situation fell apart. Bank repossessed the house and threw them out on the streets." A chuckle escaped my lips, involuntary and raw. He finally realized he wasn't in control. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Serves him right," I said flatly. There was a pause on the other end of the line, Butch seemingly absorbing the weight of it all. "Yeah, guess you could say that. And Gloria and Kara? Well, they're working at some Hooters now. Not exactly the high life they were banking on, huh?" I let the thought sink in, the sweetness of it spreading through me. Logan was gone. Gloria, reduced to a life far beneath her delusions of grandeur. Kara, the little princess, now a waitress in a bar. The image was almost poetic in its irony. Laughter bubbled up from deep within me, unfiltered and without remorse. "Good," I said simply. "That's exactly what they deserve." For a moment, Butch didn't reply. Then, with a tone that bordered on disbelief, he asked, "You're okay with all that?" "Why wouldn't I be?" I replied, leaning back against the pillows. "They had their chance. They thought they could play me for a fool. Now they're the ones getting played." The silence stretched, heavy and deliberate, before Butch finally spoke again. "All right, man," he said, his voice resigned. "Just thought you should know." "Thanks," I muttered, and without another word, I hung up the call. Turning back to my girlfriend, still half asleep beside me, I tucked my phone away and pulled her closer. Her warmth was comforting, grounding me in the present. The weight of the past had lifted like an old coat being shrugged off and discarded. I had everything I needed now: money, freedom, and peace of mind. Everything else was just noise. Closing my eyes, I settled into the quiet comfort of the moment. Whatever Gloria, Kara, or Logan were enduring no longer mattered. Their struggles were their own. I was finally where I needed to be, with nothing left to regret. And then, almost as an afterthought, I remembered something. I never filed for divorce. A smirk tugged at my lips. But then again, I don't exist anymore. Thank you for watching and hope to see you soon. Have a great day.